Welcome home, all. Thank you for being here. It is Tuesday, March 10, and getting into the week. Had a busy weekend of material information to go through and over. But I wanted to start today's show off with something that we did last week as a beginning. And for those of you that are not in the know or don't know, this is light. I'm not making it like educational, like a whole lot of like I'm going to sit here and do an hour on a particular woman that is deserving of attention and deserving of knowing. But I've said a bunch of times, especially for, and I'm not going to be specific here, but especially for young males, Mexican males, minority males, there's a lot that we don't know or do not get taught about Mexican women, Hispanic women that have contributed or have done incredible things and that need that spotlight drawn on them and to gather that attention. If you don't have role models and icons and figures to look up to or respect, admire, and in some cases, follow and emulate, then you don't have a good framework or a good ideal to live up to and to be. So if you have a female out there or a woman out there that, because I'll say this, we all have a mom that, most of us anyway, a good majority have a Mexican mom or Hispanic mom that, you love and respect and you're in awe of, like I am for my mother and most of the women in my life, just about all of them. We need, and I'll say this again, we need to, Mexican America, Mexicans in general, and Mexicans for the country as a whole, United States, we need to start drawing more positive spotlight and attention to the Mexican women in this world, in the United States and the world as a whole, that have done incredible things and just have not gotten the recognition or the respect that they deserve. I'll leave it there, okay? And again, a largely cultural issue and matter going back, decades and years. It's part of, the patriarchy, if you're afraid of that word. But for the most part, I mean, no one's going to sit here and argue credibly with me that men have not had it easier in a lot of ways than women over the course of our entire history. You can make that argument. And now women are getting more of that in return and have to fight for it, right? So I've said this to a lot of women in my life, my wife in particular, and even my daughter to a degree, but I've told them directly that it's not enough for women to support women. That has to be the minimum. That has to be the floor. And as I say that, if you're a female and you're a woman listening to this, you're saying, well, they don't always do that. Women don't always support women. Women frequently, undercut each other or sell each other out and throw each other under the bus. But I do believe that has to be the minimum, meaning we have to do that as a minimum. And I'm not saying me, like we male, but women have to support each other. Okay. And then if women are to get their fair shake and their just due, an equitable playing field, and I won't do it tonight, but we can do the thing and show you, like in number, the fact that women make more on the dollar than men, period. Okay. Women don't have the same opportunities as men. We've never had a female president. And I don't want to hear any bullshit about, the two that ran weren't good. It isn't their qualification anymore, because the two women that we've had run, were qualified, more so than any other woman past. But it's about men being okay with that. And that's going to go to my point as we begin this show today, that it's not enough for women to support women. That has to be the floor. That has to be the minimum standard. And then after that, men, and I'm not going to say that I believe we're going to get 100% of men to just uniformly support and respect and love women and watch them do their thing. That's kind of the way I've framed it. Read into it however you want, but that's the way I look at it. I tell people that my ego is so massive and I'm so comfortable and confident with who I am personally that I'm absolutely comfortable and cool with a wife, a daughter, a mother doing their thing and doing it well, to the point where I'll get out of the way and like, damn, that's pretty good, right? Watch, I'm okay with that. And that's because you have to have enough confidence and strength in person to be able to do that. And in some cases, just get out of the way and let women run. I mean, like, if they're going to do it and they're going to do it well, then that's a leadership thing too, by the way. I learned that in the Army. If someone can do the job as good or better, get out of the way. And if they can do the job as good, sometimes just get out of the way and let more people be involved. That's equity. See how that works? That's equity. So let me stop there. That's my philosophy on in general. And that's why, even though I'm blatantly Mexican male, I will spend the rest of this month on the shows that we do, a couple nights a week, maybe more if we can do that before the month is over. And a female, most likely a Mexican American, Latina, or Hispanic female. Okay, we can do all in general, but the show is in my wheelhouse because of my background and what I am and what I look like. I've said before a bunch of times, and tonight's show will be similar for the few. We're not going to be too long tonight, but the few topics that we do touch will be in my wheelhouse. My background: I'm a United States Army veteran. I'm a Mexican American. I'm an educator, etc. Okay, so those are the issues that I want to spend on. And in this particular case, even though I am a male, a Mexican American male, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I believe that women supporting women is a minimum standard. That has to be the absolute floor for what women do to gain and be appreciated for their contribution, their work, their life. And on top of that, men have to sometimes get out of the way and let them do their thing. Sometimes have to support them in the things that they're doing. Sometimes have to give them opportunities in the things that they can or can't do. Right? So I think that's the minimum standard. That's where I'm approaching it. And from what I'm telling you, for those young dudes out there, my wheelhouse target group is young minority males, because they do listen to me. I've worked with them for 30 years. I've been doing it since I got out of the Army. Young minority males, I'm telling you directly, you need to be strong enough, confident enough, intellectually stable, and bedrock enough to let the women in your life do their thing, whatever that is. Whatever that is. Get out of the way, let them do their thing, and then support, bolster, augment, reinforce, and grow them in the things that they do. That's why Supermex Nation, our show for the remainder of this month, is going to spotlight at least one good, powerful, strong, good-looking woman every episode, every stream we do this month. Okay, so let's get down to business with the first one. And as I wasn't planning on this, I want to say, like, earlier, once we got started up again, in a number of months ago. But the calendar comes up, and then, oh, wait a minute, it's Women's History Month, and we want to do something about that, right? And so it kind of came organically. I would have gotten to it eventually anyway, but I've just solidified over this last few weeks that I wanted to spend at least a good chunk of time, a good chunk meaning up at the front, not at the back, because if we're wrapping up the show and I'm running out of time, then that lady may not get the same amount of attention and time, on Supermex Nation that I had originally planned for, that she deserves. So first things first, and we're going to kind of do this in a different. I'm gonna name the lady, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about, and then what we're gonna do is in the YouTube chat, I'm gonna have the man on the mic, or not the mic, but the man on the controls, Dominican, punch in and provide some links or the name so you can go to, and I'll talk about that in a second. So first things first, or first things in this case first, the lady's name is Alondra, Alondra. If you want to look it up on your own, or you want to check it out on your own, you want to do some research on your own, and I'm advising you to, because that's why we're doing the show. Alondra de la Parra. So it's Alondra. That's her first name. Her last name's de la Parra. DE space LA space Parra. Parra. Alondra de la Parra. Why is she, on Supermex Nation's list of Mexican women, Hispanic women to watch, to pay attention to give attention to give a spotlight to? So she is, and I think I may have mentioned at the back end of the last show, but she is a conductor, a musical conductor for orchestra, symphony, etc. And again, I won't go into too much. It'll be a long while, because I could literally do a show on just her alone. But I'm bringing the name up so you can do a little bit and learn on your own. But here's the beauty of this one in particular. So this format here, our medium tonight is YouTube. So she has a YouTube channel. We'll get that into the chat. She has her own YouTube channel, and I specifically have a playlist of hers that I created out of her different pieces that she has conducted all over the world. So what I want to make sure that we spotlight here is, okay, so she's Mexican from Mexico, Mexicana from Mexico, and she is a conductor of symphony, conductor of orchestra, and she's conducted all over the world. I think Berlin, obviously Mexico, some of the most renowned symphonies in the world she has spent time as conductor for a year, 2 years. I'm not really super. So if you're really knowledgeable on classical music and the process of it, the mechanics of how culturally it works professionally in the genre, then by all means educate me and inform me through the chat, help me out, that way. But as far as I know from what I see, basically different symphonies hire or contract out with a conductor from somewhere else, because it's not like, and I was just sharing this with someone right now, it's not like, we'll use the Berlin, for example, the Berlin Symphony Orchestra does not have a single conductor like for eternity. What they do is they hire a conductor, or they contract with and they bring in a conductor to them to conduct their orchestra for X amount of years or time. Okay, so they can go out and get whoever they want, whoever's, the hot young, or older artist, conductor, in the world, who's in vogue, who's at the top of their game. So this lady has been for a while, and so she's conducted all over the world. I can't, if there's someone that's more knowledgeable, by all means share in the chat. But from what I've spent time listening, because again, it's YouTube and it makes it really easy, right? I listen to a lot of her music and her conducting on YouTube. And I'll just give you this one. So there's 3 in particular, and I'm going to give you the titles and the names of them, and then maybe later I'll come back and punch them in the chat if I can't have Dominican do that. But there's a piece called Huapango. It's Huapango, a piece, and Moncayo, MoncayO, I'm sorry, Cayo. Punch those in, and these will come up. And if you punch them in like Huapango, Alondra de la Parra, it'll come up. I want to say it's like 20 minutes-ish, in that range. The same for Moncayo. But the one that, and this is no joke, the one that I can literally listen to on a loop for hours, and normally while I'm studying, while I'm reading, or while I'm working on something, at my computer or at a device. I almost never use devices. I pretty much use computer. I don't like getting on phones to do stuff like that. But if I'm working on something heavy, like intellectually work, then I'll listen to some classical music. And this one in particular, I can literally listen to on a loop, like for hours on end. And the pieces, and again, it's not hers. Reminder, she's a conductor. She takes musical pieces from classical masters, artists, and then she conducts an orchestra, a symphony, to play that piece, to play that musical piece. So my favorite of hers, and one of my favorite all time, I would say, and again, I'm not a classical expert, but I'm far more knowledgeable in classical music than most Mexican Americans are in general, because I've spent the time and the ear to learn and to study and to know. So my favorite of hers in particular, so Alondra de la Parra, is Ravel's Bolero, B-O-L-E, Bolero, B-O-L-E-R-O, Ravel, Maurice Ravel, the French composer, who is this is like a timeless piece. It's known, and if you heard it, you would know it immediately. So it's Bolero by Ravel, Maurice Ravel, the French composer, and her piece on this, her conducting of it is just like, I think it's one of the best I've ever heard. Again, because she's not the only one, right? Ravel is the composer. It's his piece, long gone now, but other conductors also play Bolero. and other people play bolero. But her piece, her conducting of bolero is just astounding to me. I can literally listen to it over and over and over again, not get beyond not even tired of it, but it just works for me. It's beyond soothing and relaxing. You know, some people think you listen to classical music to be soothed and relaxed. You don't listen to classical music just for that. There's so much more to it. And I'm hoping that some of my young Mexican dudes out there that respect me, that are my former students, former wrestlers, former fighters, that you know who I am, you know what I am, and you know that if I'm saying I'm doing something, there's a reason for it and it's good. I'm advising you, counseling you, suggesting to you strongly, submitting for your approval to listen to some classical music. This is a very good ingress into the classical music genre based on this lady here, Alondra de la Parra. Again, my favorite piece of hers is Bolero by Ravel. I can literally listen to it hours and hours on end. I'll finish here because, like I said, I don't want to. It's not a class on Alondra de la Parra, and we got to get into the meat of the day's news. But this is Women's History Month. We're starting the show tonight with her, Alondra de la Parra. She's Mexican from Mexico. She's a conductora. Her favorite piece for me, and I'm engaging you to go and listen to her. She's awesome. That's all I'm going to tell you. She is awesome. And I don't use that word very often, literally at all, or lightly for that matter, at all. Okay. Alondra de la Parra, my favorite piece of hers is Ravel's Bolero. Listen to that and watch her. And if you're Mexican American, if you're Mexican or Mexican American or both, all of the above, if you're Hispanic or Latino, show some love and respect to this lady. So I'm going to do this, and I don't do this often, but I will do it tonight. Go to her YouTube channel. She does have an Instagram page, and I do follow her on there. And it kind of came out of an organic move a number of years ago when I started saying to myself, Mexican Americas does not have the heroes, icons, figures necessary that are global in stature and attention, let alone regional in stature and attention. In other words, we don't do enough. Mexicans in Mexican America, we don't do enough. And I say we need to do more. I said we need to do more. And so therefore, i.e., we're moving to doing more. In this particular case, like I said, she came up organically. It was like the remainder or the number of women that I have on a list right now that are Hispanic, Latina, Mexican American, Mexican from Mexico. The number that I have, it's well more than what I'll be able to do in 1 month for sure. And I need to address that and need to figure that out, how I'm going to do that so that all of them get attention, right? But she's one of them, and she kind of came from an organic work on my part in my attempt to go cross-discipline, cross-curricular, be all educator on you, and to find women in multiple genres, disciplines, professions, art fields, works, etc., and see if we have any that are like at the top of the game. Now watch this, not at the top of the game like for Mexicans or Mexican America, but I mean at the top of the game, like global. They're as good as or better than anyone, not just a specific subgroup of Mexican or Mexican America. This lady, this gal, Alondra de la Parra, is global. She's global and recognized as such by her peers and her colleagues at the highest level of classical music and classical music conducting. She's badass, point blank. Okay. And I will say it because you're going to see it. She's kind of pretty too. I mean, that I'm sure that doesn't hurt, when she's on stage conducting and in personality. And let's not get too deep into this, but the point is she's pretty, she's personable, she's outgoing, she's intellectual, she's extremely creative artistically, obviously. She's got all the tools to be able to put herself in position to where she gets attention on a global scale. And I'll leave it there. And again, if you're a viewer or follower of mine, I cannot suggest highly enough to give this lady some attention, some love, some respect. I would even say go and go to her YouTube channel for sure. If not Instagram, if you want to do that. I followed her on Instagram. I don't follow much on Instagram. Instagram is usually more a tool for me to like learn something from someone. And if I want to know more about that person specifically because of what they're doing, what field or what art they're working in, then I go to it. But YouTube in particular, I suggest I will provide my link to my playlist, my personal playlist, Supermex's. I think I have it like ADLP. I shortened it because her name's long. ADLP, Alondra de la Parra. I have a playlist of her specifically. I'll punch that into the chat tonight when I get home so that you can go listen to like my selected works. But again, I encourage you to go and find for yourself. There's no substitute to that. Don't be sheep. Don't just like, hey, somebody's saying go this way. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not going to mislead you or lie to you. I don't play games and I don't bullshit and I do not lie. Okay, I do not do that with my listener, my viewer. And if there is something that I did wrong, I'll correct it on air for everybody to see. So I'm suggesting that, yes, I'm going to give you something to work with, but I definitely suggest listening to more. But I'm telling you, that's just me, but I can literally listen to her piece on Ravel, the Bolero, for hours at a time. It's just good to like listen to, and you can literally just sit there doing nothing and just relaxed listening to this music of hers. Again, so last point, Alondra de la Parra, Mexican woman, not Mexican American, but Mexican woman from Mexico, conductor, internationally known, internationally respected, one of the best on the planet, and she's a Mexican gal from Mexico. And I'm saying us from Mexico and Mexican America, we need to show her some love and respect and show her support. Because it's not enough to say, oh, yeah, she's good. No. We need to support her. And how do you do that? Likes, shares, subscribes, etc. Right? So I'm telling you to do that with her YouTube channel. So let me make sure I got a point there. So I'll share my playlist, Supermex's playlist of Alondra de la Parra, into the chat tonight later. And then I'll provide the link to her page as well. So you can go to her page personally. And she's got everything laid out. She's got all of her performances all over the world. And you can kind of just listen at your leisure when you choose, when you want to, and then make your choice as to what you think your particular piece is that you enjoy most from her. And then again, back to this, we're sharing here and we're growing together. If you see something or you hear something in particular that you like of hers, that is your favorite, then share that. Maybe I haven't heard it, or maybe I need to give it another listen. I'm willing to learn too. Ancora imparo, my old line going back to when I was a kid. Still, I am learning. I'm extremely bright, extremely intelligent, but I'm smart enough and intelligent enough with a fat enough IQ to know that I don't know everything, and willing to listen to others that have information to share with me. Okay, so Alondra de la Parra, go to her YouTube page. She is on Instagram as well. You can get like images, but in particular, obviously, I love the YouTube because you can get her music. Right. So I'll share the playlist with you. I'll share the link to her, to her YouTube page, and probably her Instagram page as well, and whatever other socials. We'll put that in the chat. So again, last point, Alondra de la Parra from Mexico, conductora, just awesome. Cannot recommend highly enough. Okay, let's move on and get down to some business. We're going to go kind of light tonight, not because there isn't enough to go over, but I just want to draw some focus and attention to a couple things in particular that, through the weekend, over the weekend, obviously, every day is a new news cycle day, and every day brings some other hooey. I mean, you could find something positive and find something negative every day at any time if you want. For instance, I'm sharing a positive with you today. I'm sharing something positive with you in the form of an artist, a composer, a conductress, to point out the fact that there's a lot of good being done in the world too. It isn't always doom and gloom, and it isn't only just the bad that are, I won't say leaders, I don't consider them leaders, but the people that are running the show are doing. So I have to be even-handed about it and fair. I am ruthless, tooth and nail, and cutthroat about calling out lack of leadership, poor leadership, or just plain evil when I see it. But I am equally so when it comes to drawing attention to, focusing on, and spotlighting the good that there is out there. And if I haven't done enough of that over this last handful of months since we got started again, then my apologies to you. Then I'll rectify that situation and be a little more even-handed about the positives that we have in our culture, in our society, in this country as a whole. Okay, so again, the wheelhouse for me is I'm a veteran, served in the U.S. Army, served during the first Persian Gulf War. I'm an educator, U.S. history in particular, constitutional history in particular, classical history, another for me, classical history meaning ancient Greece, ancient Rome, the culture, the laws, the art out of that time period, classical. There's a reason we have that term into now. And then obviously as we started the show, I'm Mexican American. I want to draw focus and spotlight on all the positives that go with that culture. So in the wheelhouse today, I'm gonna do this ugly part that I need to do that I kind of did online through social media. So as of today, yesterday into today, there is a seventh U.S. service member killed in action or during this war. They're calling it something other, but it's a war. And let's not bullshit and play games about it. It's a war. Okay. Bottom line. So there's a seventh, and I don't think they've released the name yet, but I'm going to take this few minutes of time to reinforce what I posted in my social media group online and to draw attention, focus, and show some honor and respect to the men and women that lose their lives for us in whatever way that is. And then I'll draw distinction on that. So in general, look, you grow up, almost everybody in this country, United States, and in most other countries as well, you grow up learning to, at the very minimum, respecting and showing a little bit of honor and respect for people that choose or that have worn the nation's cloth, the uniform, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and now I think we got a Space Force. So all the people that choose to serve in uniform, and I'd say I'm being a little, little slow and deliberate here because I say choose to, but because the Vietnam era soldier, they didn't get to choose. They were drafted, so that's different. That's different. They didn't have a choice. I chose to. And I will say that if I were around in Vietnam, like I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4. As far as I know, I had 4 uncles, 2 on either side of my family that actually wore the uniform during Vietnam. 4 uncles that served during Vietnam or wore the uniform, without going into too much of that. So we're taught, at least in my family, in our culture, Mexican culture in general, I will hammer that home. Mexican culture, we revere and respect the men and women that serve in our nation's armed forces. I'll say we do so more than most. Not slighting another group. Make sure I'm clear. You want to pick a fight, go pick it with someone else because it's stupid. But I will say that at least in relation to the numbers in this country by population and the amount that actually choose to serve or were drafted, et cetera, going back through these nations, through the wars of this nation, Mexican Americans serve in an outsized number and percentage of the population that they represent. In other words, if the population of Mexican America is X, we serve in the armed forces X plus 2 or 3. We just do. It's just part of our culture, part of our thing. It's what we do, right? I mean, I've even had people, I've heard people call people that serve stupid, or they couldn't do anything other or better, right? And I'll use this quick example just to iterate the point. I don't do this very often either, and I don't like to. But now I won't use myself. I was raised by a father that taught me out of respect and humility not to make too much of yourself. Both of my grandfathers have served and served in World War II during that conflict. I just stated that 4 of my uncles wore the uniform during the Vietnam War. drafted. And this is direct, okay? So this is my direct family. There are a whole bunch of cousins. I think I've even mentioned that. I think between my Martinez and Ortiz family total, my dad's name and my mom's name, Martinez and Ortiz, we're in the neighborhood of around 100 soldiers, men and women that have served this country in uniform since World War II. You think about it like, okay, World War II, a long time ago, but that's a lot. That's a big number. Most people have some, right? But I'm talking about directly in my tree, in my family, cousins, immediate cousins, uncles, aunts, etc., have served. Okay, so drop that. This is my point. Because you choose to serve doesn't automatically mean or doesn't rise to assumption that what you're doing is not good and that you couldn't do something else. In my case, personally, I had always wanted to serve because I grew up around it. I literally grew up at the knees of two grandfathers telling me war stories, telling me stories about World War II. My grandfather, D, who was a bona fide badass, not by my account, but by medals, awards, etc. He just tell me some crazy stuff, just cool stuff, nothing like weird or offbeat but just things that he had to do, to survive. And my grandpa Ernie was not in the Pacific. I want to say he was either stateside or European, but he used to tell me stories of more along the lines of not the fighting, but more along the lines of what this country was, what its belief was. He was more of a scholar, educator that way, a historian, and he taught me the respect and love of country that I still have to this day. So I learned at his knee about what it is to be American and why we fight and lose life, and what it means to do so, and how important it is for us to do it right, not just to go fight for the hell of it, but fight because we're doing right. We're doing something that is good, and they believed in. And no one in their right mind anyway, unless you're maybe in the cult, unless you're in the Trump cult, you can find some way to weasel out of it. But no one in their right mind will sit across from me at a table or in person and debate with me that fighting against fascism and Hitler, Mussolini, and the Empire of Japan at that time was not a good thing. It was uniformly and still is understood to be the right thing to do, a good thing. There was no subjectivity. There was no debate unless you were on the other side, right? Unless you were the evil trying to control everybody else. But there was no debate to this point. And so I lean now to where we are in pointing out what I was saying about people that serve. And I'll leave this last point as I finish up this point as a whole. My son chose to serve as well. And he had a phenomenal GPA, 4-point-something thousand. Nowadays, you don't even know what the hell it is. It'd be like, you can get like a 7.9 GPA now. I'm exaggerating. Anyway, my point is, astounding GPA, many accomplishments. He was a wrestling national champion at Fargo. For those of you in the know, he won Fargo. That's nationals. In Greco, no less. And at the same time, he was an academic decathlon national champion as well, all in the form of one person. And in theory, we could have really applied anywhere in the country and went to any school in the country. Like, well, how do you know that? Because he joined the Army. We never even looked. He never applied. He never went through the process. He even told people, including recruiters, high school, on campus, college recruiters, et cetera, that he was not doing that he was joining the Army. And then they left him alone, right? Well, I guess he's just going to the Army. So he went to the Army. But my point in saying that he could have went wherever he wanted. He could have gotten into any school that he wanted. He could have went to any college he wanted. Now, how do I know that? The evidence is simple. Because when he finished and he ended his term of service, he ETS'd. He came back to the United States after serving in the United States Army after high school. And then he accepted, and was enrolled at Harvard University. So not going to belabor the point, not going to make too much of an issue out of it, but I think you understand the rationale. He could have went to any school he wanted to. And he did. He just did it a little bit later. He chose to serve his country first, not because he couldn't do anything else, not because he was dumb, not because he didn't have prospects, not because he couldn't go to any school in the country. No, he chose to serve because that is what we do, and that is part of our family. And he chose to give his time. Now, I'm not using that as a cudgel to beat up on anybody else for not. My point, though, is that I don't want to hear, and I'm tired of hearing people that diminish, belittle, or rip on those who do serve as not capable or not good of, or I'll even go a step further and say that they're suckers and losers, because they're not. There are people in the United States Army and the United States military as a whole that are literally the cream of the crop. And I don't mean physically, because some of them are both, physically and intellectually. The very best of what this country has to offer, hands down, period. If you go doing a little bit of work and research on your own, you look into some of the generals and admirals, rear flag officers that we have, these people are extremely intelligent, like off the charts intelligent. And they're tougher than a junkyard dog will whoop your ass. And that is what leads, our country, at least on the military side, at least. So again, wanted to draw that focus and attention to kind of hammer home to my viewers, my audience, in Mexican America, for sure. And if you're, again, I want to make sure I double down on this point. I don't just have Mexican Americans and Mexicans listening to my show. I have others that listen too. Not because I'm just talking to them from the Mexican perspective, but I've had some of those friends tell me directly they want to hear my perspective because they don't understand it. They don't know it. Maybe they're white, they're black, or something else. They like hearing what my perspective is. Sometimes it's the same as theirs. Sometimes it is not. But they're intellectually strong enough of character to come outside of their own particular comfort zone and listen to someone else. Gotta love that. Gotta respect that. Okay, so pointing that out, giving you that little brief / history philosophy lesson on service and those that do. And I'm gonna spend my time. And again, we're not gonna go super long. It would probably be I want to be in that 45 to 50 range at most. We were to talk quite a bit, but I want what you remember out of this show tonight, the good and the bad. The two most important things that I want you to remember from tonight's show, if not the philosophical bent for why we serve and how we serve, et cetera, and my background in it as a member of the United States Armed Forces, the United States Army, and a lover of this country to the very core, right down to my damn bones, toes to head. I want to say out loud and speak to the people that have already lost their lives in this Trumpstein war. They haven't come, they're calling it, I was like Epstein Fury, Epic Fury. I'm even tired of the names, by the way. They sound so damn cheeseball. And this isn't just this one. It goes back. The cheeseball names that they give these operations. I mean, come on, man. Anyway, I've got my issues with that. That's for another time. So the operation is Epic Fury. It's a war. They're just not naming it that yet. It'll be called something later. History has a way of doing that, by the way. Reminder, I'm a old history teacher. History will find a way to categorize, identify, classify this war that we are currently engaged in as a country. Okay? So the numbnuts figures at the top of our government right now are calling it Operation Epstein. I'm doing it again. Epic Fury. It's really, really translating well to Epstein Fury. I just call it the Trumpstein War because when this history period, this window of time in our nation's history is reviewed and seen with the magnifying glass and the bright glaring light of history shining down on the past, apolitically, emotionlessly, deducing from fact and data, we will see that this war was largely started to divert, deflect, and remove attention from the negatives that this president is dealing with, principally, not the only one, mind you, not the only one. Shooting people in the face and the back on American streets is another one, because that has taken place, has happened. But because the Epstein files scandal in the White House and in this country is not going away. It's lingering and going to continue to linger. And I've made the case and made the statement that it's only going to get worse. It can only get worse. I think I made this statement. I'm going to stick to it. At the very minimum, ladies and gentlemen, if you're one of my listeners or viewers, at the very minimum, I can guarantee you, and I do not bet, I've said that a bunch of times now, it's a running joke with my viewers and listeners, and I'm not a betting man. I'm not. And I reiterate that point over and over again to tell you, to show you that I'm not a betting man. So if I'm willing to say something, it's because I'm not gambling or guessing. But I'm going to state this openly. And if I'm wrong, then I will come back on air and correct myself openly as well and admit that I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure I'm not. Like literally going close to 90-something% efficiency. At the very least, when Donald Trump is dead, when the traitor is dead, when his fat ass finally dies, whenever that time is, there will be more people that come out with more information and more facts and more data on the Epstein files and Donald Trump's involvement in them and the things that he did or did not do when he was a younger man in the 80s, 90s, etc. There will be more. I'm that confident because, again, I'm an historian. History has a way of finding things out over time. So right now in the moment, we can lob back and forth. You can have Trump cult members defending him no matter what. You can hear allegations that he had sexual relations with the 13-year-old girl. You could hear allegations that, he did a porn star while his wife was pregnant. You could hear allegations. Take that back. Not an allegation. You could hear him say in his own words, fact, data, truth, that he can walk up to a woman and grab her by the pussy because he chooses to. You can hear all of that. And they will still defend him and make it okay. At this point, that doesn't speak to Donald Trump. That speaks to that person and who they really are. If someone's really, really that deep down that rabbit hole willing to defend him no matter what, then logically you have to ask the question, why? And to hear the mindless, intellectually numbing response that the other side is so bad does not hold intellectual water. Doesn't. It just does not. Because if you can tell me that, like with a straight face, Joe Biden had bad gas prices, but I'm with Donald Trump and grabbing women by the pussy. Get it? There's a dichotomy there. There's an incoherence, a lack of rational thought. And I'll say it, a blatant stupidity. Not ignorance, because you know better. Ignorance is not knowing. This is stupidity. This is its own special brand of stupidity. So let me rephrase that again. Joe Biden had bad gas prices. And that's arbitrary. We can debate that, by the way. I mean, you're going to sit here and tell me that Donald Trump's gas prices right now are so great. No, they're not. Or they were at one point. Well, you know what? Before him, there was Obama, there was Bush, there was Clinton, and gas prices were lower under all of those presidents. But you categorically and specifically point out Joe Biden because you can use that as your foil. Repeat. Joe Biden's gas prices bad. Donald Trump grabbed women by pussy. Good. One or the other. There's no hiding in between. So if you're one of those, I got nothing for you. Okay? If you can go there and be okay with that. So I'm going to point out and name these. I'm having a hard time like wanting to, but we've got to do it, right? This war that we're in started by Donald Trump and that numbnuts Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is going to go down in history as the least qualified, the most incompetent, the worst Secretary of Defense that we've ever had in the history of this country. And that's not going to be much for debate either. There's not going to be debate there. Okay, put that aside because it's easy to do this with Trump. There's so much bad you can't even focus on all of it. We're going to do this. I don't doubt that there was calculus on why to start a war at this particular time. I've already laid it out for you. It's there. But my last point to finish this show tonight is that men and women are dying. Men and women in uniform are going to die. And I'll reiterate the point from a week and a half ago when Donald Trump said, that's what happens in war. That's the way it is. Referencing and talking about men and women in uniform, our blood and treasure, our nation's people dying. No president has ever made that kind of statement, ever, ever. You're either incredibly stupid or you just don't give a shit. I think it's a staggering cognitive combination of both. Let me rephrase that. Let me repeat it. Not rephrase, but repeat. It's a staggering cognitive combination of both. He doesn't give a shit, and he's ignorant. Ignorant because he's never served. Ignorant because no one in his family serves. Ignorant because no one he knows will ever get him to understand what it is to lose life while serving country. Fact. Stop. Period. Done. Exclamation point. There is no debate. MAGA cult. Period. Donald Trump will never know, will never understand, will never feel what it is to lose life as an American serving country. Not only for himself, because he's a draft-dodging, bone spur, practicing, performing coward, but two, because outside of self, no one in his family serves. So he cannot know. He's ignorant, period. All right? And that's being generous, by the way. That's being nice, generous. But on the other side, ignorance. Watch this conundrum. If you're just listening and you're not watching, I apologize because I'm doing things with my hands and illustrating the point visually. Ignorance, morphing, congealing, transforming to the other end of the spectrum, 1 to 180, to stupidity. Ignorance to stupidity, because they're not mutually exclusive. They don't have to be. They can be. All right? But in this case, you can be one and the other. You can be both. You can be both ignorant and stupid. Now, I'm saying he's ignorant for the obvious reasons. He has never served. He will never know what that is. And no one in his family serves, period. So he'll never know what it is to lose someone, period. But he did say that's the way it is, right? So we just have to bite down on it. And if we're stupid, America, we do bite down on it because he feeds us a shit taco and we ask for seconds. We ask for the fucking recipe and we ask for salsa. Ignorance. Stupidity over here on this end, right? This is stupidity. Because you can acknowledge that you don't know because you're ignorant. But if you're willing to say that's the way it is because you're stupid, you're no longer just ignorant. You're stupid for saying that in public, on air, for all to see. And then the last point to that, stupidity being a special brand of I don't give a shit. I don't care. That is the 1 to 180. He is ignorant here of service, of serving, of losing life, of dying. And on this end, he doesn't care, which bleeds into and creates the special brand of stupidity for something coming out of your mouth, not just out of ignorance, but out of blatant stupidity. That's the way it is. People die. That's the way it is. One of the most reprehensible, one of the most cowardly, weak little bitch statements in American history. And it'll be judged as that as time goes on. And we view this through the lens of history for this time period. So We'll finish the show on the positive side. And how is this positive? Because we're going to name the people that have died. I've already put out through my social media group and others, to my group of people, to my followers, to my listeners, to my viewers, to honor those and respect them, remember their name, remember who they are. Remember they have families, they have people that love them, that they grew up with, communities. Iowa in particular, for the 6 that died earlier, because they were from the same unit. But they've literally given their lives, and I'm not going to do this. They didn't give their lives for you. They literally gave their lives for Donald Trump and his weak attempt to direct and deflect attention away from the Epstein files, Trumpstein files, and his involvement in it. I believe that. I absolutely believe that. All evidence on the table, and going forward, I believe that 100%. So let's do the positive thing and honor and respect those that wore the uniform and that died in it for some old, lazy, fat-ass white guy that doesn't give a shit about them. Let's just call it what it is. That's why this is Super Mex Nation. We don't bullshit here. We speak the damn truth and don't play games about it. So we lost the 7th, as I said earlier at the top of the show. Earlier, I don't have the name yet. I'll bring that name up, I hope, by Thursday if we have it, if it's released. These are the names of the 6 Americans that have died. They were killed in an Iranian drone attack in Kuwait. 6 members were given the dignified transfer, brought home to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware on March 7th, a few days ago. They were Captain Cody A. Cork, 35, of Winter Haven, Florida. Sergeant First Class Noah L. Tietjens, I apologize for the pronunciation if it is wrong, 42, of Bellevue, Nebraska. Sergeant First Class Nicole M. Amor, AMOR, 39, of White Bear, Lake, Minnesota. Sergeant Declan J. Cody, 20 years old, young dude. Young dude. Sergeant Declan J. Cody, 20, of West Des Moines, Iowa. And the U.S. military said that Major Jeffrey O'Brien, 45, of Waukee, Iowa, and Chief Warrant Officer 3, Robert Marzan, 54, of Sacramento, California, were also killed in the attack. Quick apology to those of you that are on my social media. I think when I transferred the names to my social media and the images that I put online for my viewers, my listeners to see and respect, show some honor and respect to, this is a Chief Warrant Officer 3. Watch this, is a rank. Chief Warrant Officer 3, the number 3 is a rank. There are 4 ranks to being a warrant officer. They're separate and distinct from the enlisted and officer corps. You can be an officer, you can be enlisted. A warrant officer is not enlisted or officer. It's its own special category and categorization of rank. So the 4 ranks are Chief Warrant Officer 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because when it was done initially, they released it as Chief Warrant Officer 3 Marzan. His name is actually Robert Marzan. It's not 3 Marzan. So people were kind of a little confused. Is his name 3? It isn't. They just, the rank bled into the name. They just used the last name, not the first. So instead of it reading Chief Warrant Officer 3 Robert Marzan, it read Chief Warrant Officer 3 Marzan. Anyway, little side note, but those of you in the service, you understand what I'm talking about. It's an important distinction, and it's about getting the name right. The man died for this country. The man died for someone else's wars and bullshit. You could at least get his name right. Okay, so one last time, and then we'll be off air. Captain Cody A. Cork, 35. Sergeant First Class Noah L. Tietjens. Sergeant First Class Nicole M. Amor. Sergeant Declan J. Cody. Major Jeffrey O'Brien. And Chief Warrant Officer 3, Robert Marzan. Good and the bad, but I want to make the bad a good. Respect who they are, what they are, and don't just say it, America. Don't just say, oh, I respect the fallen. I had this told to me a long time ago during a Veterans Day ceremony by an older dog, older than me. He was a Korean War vet, no longer with us, but I'll never forget what he told me. He said he doesn't like hearing Americans tell him, thank you for your service. He says, because more often than not, more of them are just saying it than ever before, just because they feel they have to say it, and they don't actually mean it. So his response to a person that told him, thank you for your service, he said to them, don't thank me for my service. Be the kind of American that I want to serve for. And I'm going to leave you with that tonight. And I want you to consider that, considering the time that we are in currently. Don't thank a veteran or a dead soldier for their service. Be a fucking good American and be worthy of their service. That's all for you tonight. I'll see you back on Thursday. Thank you for being here. Share it, like it, do that stuff, because our number is going to begin to grow now, and we will get to more people. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday.